Hello, this is Jasu Bakuhatsu and welcome back to Let's Play Rockin Kats. It's now time for the final stage. That's actually not true. It is now time to spend our money on items and mini-games. We do have enough in the bank to buy a 1-up and play the pipe toss game, but there's actually a much better way to farm a lot of extra lives, and that is with our last bonus game here, the roulette wheel. The cash payouts for this game aren't very good, but you can earn a lot of lives very quickly with this one. Willy stops spinning immediately when you hit the button, so with really good timing it's actually possible to land on the 3-up space every single time, or at least get near to it. But even if you don't have good timing, say you're playing with your eyes closed or at 150% speed and the outcome is just completely random, you've still got a 1 in 4 chance of landing on either the 1-up or the 3-up space, and for the same cost as a 1-up in the shop you can get 20 spins on the wheel. That's not even considering the money you'd earn back from those 20 spins, which on average is approximately enough to break even most of the time. Too long didn't listen. Buying 1-ups from the shop is for chumps. Play the roulette game instead, always. Though I am actually going to buy one with my last 500 here because I don't want to be here all day. And now, it is time for the final stage. This level here is a lot tougher and much longer than any of the previous stages. Fortunately, the continue system in this game is actually quite player-friendly, especially for the time that this came out. You do lose all of your items if you game over, which kind of sucks, you have to rebuy all of them. But you don't have to replay the entire stage, it just sends you back to your last checkpoint. Each of the first 4 stages had a checkpoint after the mid-boss, and this last stage actually has multiple checkpoints. If you choose not to continue, then you just get a password that'll take you back to the last checkpoint, so you don't even actually need to clear this final stage all in one sitting. But with all of that said, this is still pretty tough. All of the enemies here are actually taken from previous stages, although you might not have seen some of them depending on the order that you played through them. The exception is these weird stealth camo, I'm gonna say lizardmen they kind of look like, I guess? Anyway, they don't appear in any of the other levels, or anywhere else in this level, actually. The graphics for the different areas here are also a mix of reused assets and totally new content. And speaking of reused content, up ahead here we have what I'm sure is everyone's least favorite video game trope. Yes indeed, it is now time for boss refights! Woohoo! So, like I explained back in the previous video, Bullband will deal more damage here than when we fought him back in Stage 1, which means that we will actually die from one more hit now. You guys can go ahead and take bets now, I guess, on whether you think I can pull it off. Actually, it is possible to get some health back in this fight by killing the band members up top, but it takes a ton of hits to kill them and they only drop 1 small heart each, so it's just a complete waste of time if you take any hits at all trying to kill them. And if you can go that long without getting hit, then you don't need health pickups anyway, just kill the boss. Speaking of which... oh yeah! Always bet on Hepcats. Incidentally, if you read the backstory for this game, Willy is in fact a jazz musician, which is what that word means. Here we have something a bit interesting. The stage actually branches off into 2 different paths at this point. You can go down into the manhole or jump over it and continue to the right. The sewer route is definitely the harder of the 2, so let's get that one over with first. Like we've seen in the past with some other levels, the difficulty here comes from this one extra tricky part up ahead that'll just kill you over and over again if you don't have a solid grasp of the game's mechanics. On the other hand, this route is also a bit shorter than the other, so it could be worth taking if you're very confident in your swinging abilities. It's also very good practice for another trouble spot later in the stage that we won't be able to sidestep. So here's the tricky spot. To cross the water here, you need to launch yourself from one swinging point to another. And remember that you have no air control during a spin jump, so you need to release your swing at just the right trajectory. And the timing to grab onto the second point is also fairly strict. On the other hand, if you aren't that much of a badass, you can also use the jet sneakers to hover right over to the second wheel without having to swing from the first one. And yeah, that was Ghost Dog again. The samurai line from part 3 was actually a reference to the movie Ghost Dog Way of the Samurai, which I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. Anyway, that's the end of this branch, and the 2 paths merge back together at this point, so let's go back and see what we could have seen. The other path here is much simpler. There isn't really anything in the way of tricky jumps or even actually any swinging at all, really. It also has this really nice Central Park graphics set as opposed to the reused sewer graphics, which is why I usually prefer this route. Hopping across these tiny platforms can be a little bit scary, but getting hit doesn't actually knock you back far enough to send you into the water. Other than that, it's pretty much just flat terrain with a bunch of enemies, which are pretty much always the easiest areas in this game. Here we've got Shimapan Bird again. You might notice that grabbable objects like these eggs still only take off half a heart instead of the usual full heart that bosses should be dealing by now. I don't actually know why that is. Maybe objects are considered as like regular enemies for the purpose of damage or something? I don't know. Anyway, she's dead, and now we fight the Native American dogs again. This path actually has 2 mid-bosses. This fight is somewhat easier than before, since you have a much larger platform to work with and you don't have that annoying pit to worry about. You can see that I'm using a different strategy here to sort of cheese the boss this time, and I actually just discovered this right here on this run that I recorded. So, you know, I'm still learning stuff about this game, and that's really cool. So that about does it for the upper path, and now we scale a building, and you do know how I feel about scaling things in this game. Although actually there is one thing about this section that kind of irritates me. If you swing into the side of the screen here, you'll bounce off as if you had hit a wall. But if you try to punch the side of the screen to try and wall bounce off of it, your fist just goes right through like there was nothing there. I don't know, it's just like the inconsistencies like this just kind of set off my OCD sometimes. Speaking of which, it still kind of bothers me that I couldn't manage to get a really quick kill against Big Eagle on camera. I got him down pretty fast here, but if you're really on point, you can kill him right after he drops his 3rd rock. You can actually fall off the sides and die here, but the fight is actually a little bit easier this time, since you have a larger stretch of flat ground to work with. If you don't remember, there were spikes on either side last time we fought this guy. Anyway, he's dead, again, and there's a checkpoint here, so that'll be all for today. When we return, the second half of the final stage, please look forward to it. I'll see you then.